The Syrian conflict has taken a dramatic turn, as opposition forces achieved a major breakthrough by capturing large parts of Aleppo, Syria's second-largest city. This lightning offensive is being hailed as the most significant advance by rebel forces since the Syrian government recaptured the city in 2016. After years of relative calm, this development has reignited the long-standing and devastating civil war. The attack, orchestrated by a coalition of rebel groups, began earlier this week with a swift and coordinated assault. These forces moved through the outskirts of Aleppo, overtaking several villages with minimal resistance before penetrating the city itself. The rebels' progress has delivered a severe blow to President Bashar al-Assad's regime, forcing Syrian government forces to abandon key positions in what the army has described as a redeployment operation. This operation, they claim, is a strategic withdrawal while preparing for a counteroffensive. However, the suddenness and scale of the rebel gains have created a significant challenge for Assad's forces and their allies. Celebrations and strategic gains. In dramatic scenes captured on video, rebel fighters have been seen celebrating their victory at iconic locations in Aleppo, including the city's central square and the historic citadel. One video shows armed opposition fighters waving their flag and chanting slogans of victory, proclaiming their newfound control over these areas. Another clip reveals their presence at the city's airport, situated approximately 4.5 miles east of the city center. This footage, verified by international media outlets, confirms their occupation of the airport's main terminal, highlighting the strategic importance of their advance. Despite these successes, not all of Aleppo has fallen under rebel control. Northeastern parts of the city remain firmly in the hands of Assad's forces and their Iranian militia allies. To ensure security and maintain order, the rebels have imposed a strict 24-hour curfew in the city starting Saturday evening. This measure, according to the opposition, is necessary to safeguard civilians and protect property from potential looting or chaos during the ongoing conflict. Minimal resistance and the role of Russian forces. Interestingly, the rebel offensive reportedly met minimal resistance from government troops in urban areas, suggesting either a lack of preparedness or a tactical retreat by Assad's forces. Residents of Aleppo have described the surprising lack of urban combat, which contrasts sharply with the fierce battles witnessed during the government's 2016 campaign to reclaim the city. However, the tide of conflict has not gone unanswered. Russia, a key ally of the Syrian regime, has launched a series of airstrikes targeting rebel fighters in Aleppo and the neighboring Idlib province. Syrian and Russian warplanes have reportedly conducted at least 10 airstrikes since the offensive began, focusing on what they describe as terrorist gatherings, movements, and supply lines. On Saturday, additional airstrikes near Aleppo's al-Basel roundabout caused several casualties, although the full extent of the damage remains unclear. Kurdish forces and rising tensions. Amid the chaos, Kurdish forces, specifically the YPG militia, have taken advantage of the situation to expand their territorial control in Aleppo. Previously limited to 2 Kurdish neighborhoods, they have now captured additional areas formerly held by the Syrian regime. This territorial gain underscores the complex dynamics of the Syrian conflict, where multiple factions vie for control. However, these developments have also escalated tensions between the Kurdish forces and the rebel coalition. Clashes have already been reported inside Aleppo, with one rebel faction declaring its intention to target Kurdish-held areas in northern Aleppo province. This internal friction among anti-regime forces adds another layer of complexity to an already volatile situation. The strategic and symbolic importance of Aleppo. The loss of Aleppo is a significant setback for the Assad government. Once Syria's largest city and its economic powerhouse, Aleppo holds immense historical and cultural value. As one of the world's oldest continuously inhabited cities, its capture by opposition forces carries both strategic and symbolic weight. For the rebels, this victory not only marks a resurgence of their influence, but also ends their isolation in Idlib province, potentially enabling further advances across northern Syria. The rebel coalition, which came together just days before launching this offensive, has stated that their actions were in response to escalating attacks by Assad's forces and Iranian militias. The timing of their assault is particularly noteworthy, as Syria's key allies, Russia and Iran, are preoccupied with other conflicts. Russia is deeply involved in its war in Ukraine, while Iran is grappling with increasing Israeli strikes on its proxy networks across the region. The bigger picture. Syria's civil war. This offensive represents the most significant escalation in the Syrian conflict in years. The war, which began in 2011 during the Arab Spring, was triggered by a violent crackdown on pro-democracy protests. The unrest soon spiraled into a full-blown civil war, leading to the formation of the Free Syrian Army and a fragmented opposition movement. Over the past decade, the war has claimed more than 300,000 civilian lives and displaced millions, leaving a devastating impact on the region. Although a 2020 ceasefire largely reduced the intensity of fighting, sporadic clashes have continued, maintaining a state of instability. The renewed fighting in Aleppo now threatens to unravel what little progress has been made toward peace. The rebel victory has not only reignited the conflict, but also exposed the vulnerabilities of Assad's forces, particularly in their reliance on external allies for support. The role of international actors. The international response to the latest developments has been mixed. While the Assad regime and its allies have labeled the rebels as terrorists, opposition groups argue that they are fighting for freedom and justice against a dictatorial regime. The Russian airstrikes, while aimed at bolstering Assad's position, have drawn criticism from international human rights organizations for their impact on civilians. Meanwhile, the United States and European nations have largely remained on the sidelines, focusing instead on combating ISIS and addressing humanitarian concerns. Turkey, which has historically supported certain opposition factions, may see this as an opportunity to expand its influence in northern Syria. The involvement of multiple international actors underscores the global stakes in this conflict and the challenges of finding a resolution. The humanitarian impact. As the conflict escalates, the humanitarian situation in Aleppo and its surrounding regions is deteriorating rapidly. Thousands of residents have fled their homes, seeking safety amid the chaos. Those who remain face a dire shortage of essential supplies, including food, water, and medical aid. The rebel-imposed curfew, while aimed at maintaining order, has further restricted movement and access to resources. International aid organizations are struggling to reach affected areas due to ongoing airstrikes and the fragmented control of territory. The renewed violence threatens to exacerbate an already dire refugee crisis, with neighboring countries like Turkey, Lebanon, and Jordan bearing the brunt of the burden. The capture of Aleppo by opposition forces marks a turning point in Syria's protracted civil war. It highlights both the resilience of the rebel groups and the vulnerabilities of Assad's regime. However, it also underscores the complexity of the conflict, with its mix of local, regional, and international actors. As the situation unfolds, the question remains: will this victory for the rebels lead to a broader shift in the balance of power? Or will it spark a new wave of violence and suffering for the Syrian people? For now, Aleppo stands as both a symbol of hope for the opposition and a stark reminder of the devastating toll of war.